subscribers for another edition of Heads Up, joined again by Neil Davis. Neil, last weekend all the action was in Auckland, the Derby of course, and even the Warriors game, which I know you went along to, and we'll start with the Derby. You were there. Ginger Nuts, the horse you labelled on the show last week, duly saluted, and I think a few followed you in because the divvy dropped about $1 from its opening price, so I'm sure you got plenty, and I'm sure many of the subscribers did as well.
Yeah, and quite a few punters did, obviously, with the price dropping quite significantly, in a big race. It is quite a significant drop. So, but Opie Bosson, all was forgiven after his ride unfashionably at Hastings, but he rode 4 winners, didn't he, on Saturday? Top class rider, and maybe that trip to Hong Kong, although it wasn't financially that great for him, it's certainly come back a polished rider. So, and Ginger Nuts, those sectionals he ran in the Avondale Guineas and that speed rating at Te Teko, just bang showed that they weren't fluke runs. He's a really good horse. And before the race I was down in the birdcage and I watched him do his prelim, and he just had his head down, neck arched. He looked fantastic, and I thought, well, crikey, Dick, he's got to be hard to beat, and he proved hard to beat, even though he was shunted wide on the turn, wasn't he? About 4 or 5 widths wider than he would normally.
Kind of lost the compass on the turn, reminiscent of its stablemate Monaco Consul. Not quite that bad, but he navigated past him, and he had it in the bag, sort of 200 metres out. You could tell he was the one. Rising Red, the Australian visitor, fought on very well for second, and then a few good runs in behind. John Snow, Sacred Elixir running on late.
Yeah, good run.
Charles Road. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this Derby stacks up, when we look back in a year or 18 months' time and see what's come out of it. And I'm sure he'll be hard to beat in Australia, Ginger Nuts, because the wet Sydney autumn will play into his hands as well, I'd say.
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you, the way he won the Avondale Guineas? But Rising Red, we mentioned he was nothing major to beat, was he, on his Australian run? So maybe he just struck a weak field, but I think he was just too good, too big, too strong overall. So yeah, but he's going to Australia in a couple of weeks, I think. So we'll find out then, won't we? And the wet tracks are going to be likely as well. And
the Warriors, your first Warriors game for a little while, Neil. You enjoy that?
Oh, it's fantastic. Just great atmosphere, and they're a roller coaster team, aren't they? They're down early on, up, looking like they're going to win easily. Certain punters were on with the points, giving a points start, and got a bit depressed and a bit pissed off in the last 20 minutes.
Well, that's the Warriors in a nutshell, isn't it? The roller coaster of emotion. But at the end of the day, they did get a win.
Yeah.
But if it was a horse race, I would suggest that the two teams in it, you wouldn't say it was a strong form race. And I think both teams will be losing this weekend, would be my pick. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there anyway. But no, it was a great weekend to be in Auckland, and good to be amongst it. And of course, you had another reason to be backing Ginger Nuts, Neil. Your Roman bet.
Oh yes, that's right. I was doing the radio trackside slot on Monday morning, and I was downstairs staying at my daughter's place up in Auckland, and had the laptop on my knees, and Obi, the boxer, came charging in just as I got halfway through the preview of the Derby, and he's a big strapping boxer, and came in, sat on the bed and started licking you know what, and I started laughing, and I couldn't stop. But if that was an Omer bet, that was the sign. So he had to win after that. So
nice when those things come off, eh?
It sure does. Yeah. No, he's a good horse. Right, looking forward to an interesting day tomorrow. I've got a bit of rain coming, haven't we? But we'll chat about that in a moment, and about the rain radar. Well, that's going to drop on us in a few seconds. Right, I'm sitting here in front of my computer, and I've got the rain radar of Auckland. This is about 2 p.m. on Friday, and there's it's a big blue cowpat coming down on top of Auckland, and it's going to dump a lot of crap all over Auckland the next 24 hours, and forecast is 50 mils of rain between now and cup time, so we're looking at a heavy track, aren't we, Money Shot? So, yep.
Yes, unfortunately, it looks definitely the way. If the anticipated rain comes so close to race time, there won't be enough drying to improve the track. So that really throws the cup up in the air. I think it'd be fair to say horses like Chanel, definitely no chance on a wet track. Fanatic, you'd think, might struggle, and brings horses like Mega Blast, 5 to Midnight, maybe Jackstar into the equation.
Yeah, certainly does. And you were there on Saturday along with me, and you had a chat to Gary Vile, and he told you something quite interesting about his horse, Jackstar.
Yeah, well, he's very happy with Jackstar, but I said to him, you won't mind the rain. He said, we wouldn't want it any worse than sort of a dead to slow track. He said he didn't want it heavy, so just be aware, punters. I know he's been smashed 12s into 6s, 650.
Yep.
But that is what Mr. Gary Vile did say to us, so maybe a slight question mark on Jackstar if it did get to a heavy 10, but one horse that you know will handle a heavy 10 is Mega Blast. He won on a bottomless track back in late weekend it was at Trentham.
Yeah.
And I know I thought he needed a spell, but he seems to be just keeping on. You quite like him, and he was pretty strong to the line when he ran second in the Avondale Cup.
He sure was, and I had a good look at that before we did the heads up, and he was strong through the line and actually ran past El Soldado, ran at the 1600 metre mark, and nothing else was running past him. So he gave me the impression he was a bit one pace down the straight. So I thought he'd bowled past El Soldado before the line. But he just kept on going, and he's given me every impression that 2 miles is what he needs now. And, Nigel Tyler is one of the most respected trainers by the bookies, he and Tony Pike. So he knows how to set a horse for a race, and as you say, he's been up a while, but Nigel Tyler wouldn't keep him up, would he? Unless he thought he had a realistic chance of winning this race. So $6 in from $10 on Monday.
You get 3 kilos better off in the weight scale than El Soldado, so you think you'd have him covered. So I'm not gonna say anything negative towards Mega Blast this week. He'll be hard to beat.
Yeah.
5 to Midnight. I always think of that run where he chased down Humidor on a wet track at Awapuni last Sires Day. That was a heavy 10.
Yeah.
And he made up some pretty good ground on Humidor, and there was a huge gap back to third. The rain shouldn't worry.
No, he won on a wet track fresh up, didn't he? At was it Egmont or Stratford around there, and he handled it okay there, but just sort of going off the ball a wee bit for me. Maybe he's had enough, I don't know, but great respect for Lisa Latt as a trainer, so his 2 miles could just suit him ideally. Danielle Johnson. But tough race. I've just backed Mega Blast at $10, and that'll do me, and hopefully a few subscribers got on at $10, and maybe Jackstar too. He was also $10, so the 2 obvious wet trackers. Gentle Tonton won't mind a wet track, will he, I suppose, but...
What about the Bone Crusher, the weight for age 2,000 metres? The 2 at the top are the class horses in the field, Cowie and Volkstock and Barrel.
Yep.
Both would have to be question marks on the track day, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, true, right. Just I think $3 is too short for Cowie on a heavy 10 or worse track, and it does create value, doesn't it, really, with horses like Authentic Paddy, he'd go right in a heavy track. Lizzie Larmour, slow to heavy track would suit, but the horse that I like is Von Tunzelman. He's good looking Zabeel, peak of his form, is big step up in class, obviously, going to weight for age, but he did win on a slow track on his debut, and his action says he'll handle a heavy track with a sort of swinging wide, coming to the turn and powering home. So $11, Lee Thinnis, good each way money. What do you think?
Yeah, it won't be. I have to be honest, it won't be a race I'll be having a bet in, to be fair. The danger is you back Von Tunzelman at 11s, and then Cowie gets scratched and your deduction's huge. If you wait and then Cowie runs, your Von Tunzelman maybe comes in and Yukoi drifts.
Yeah.
It's just when there's potential for scratchings and track, I know we should be promoting punting, but it's a race that I'd struggle to have a bet in. But if you were to have one, something at value, definitely, as opposed to one of the shorter price commodities. So again, I'm with you there, Neil. And now, speaking of the Roger James stable, you're big on Kalani last week, and he was scratched. I think the trainer was hoping for a better track. We didn't quite get that part right, but do you think he'll line up in race 4? And if so, do you think he'll win?
I think he'll go close as Richard McCorse and Irish Smith will handle a wet track there, but I think he's a good horse, and I think he can win this race if he's, where is he, drawn
5.
Drawn 5, he'll be able to start that rail. Matt Cameron's on, and I think he's good each way money in that sort of race, yeah. Anything
I'll take you on for a chocolate fish, shall I?
Okay then, what are you
I'll
counting?
go with a horse called Enough, number 4 in that race 4. This horse, I thought, needed its 2 runs back after a bit of an injury enforced spell, and he's a big, bold galloper, and I think with those 2 runs under his belt, he might be ready to strike. I guess the track is obviously going to be the question mark, but hey, if he's there, he should handle it, and if he's not, well, he'll be scratched, and we get our chocolate fish back.
Yeah.
So we'll see how we go, eh?
Yeah, no, it's fine. No, that'd be... Yeah, the draws obviously make it interesting there, with Enough drawn down close, but Jason Waddell, intelligent rider, he'll get him off. So actually, it makes it a tough day, doesn't it, that range? It's a shame about that Aqua coming, because good fields, good horses. In the first race, New York Minute, coming up from...
that will handle the track.
It's dead right, we were there.
Remember that day at New Plymouth when that would be one of the heaviest tracks out, and it bolted in by about 11 lengths. I think it did the same at Stratford from memory the week before. So if you want one that will handle the track, that will, and I think it performed pretty well in a jump out, I read somewhere, so it should be ready to rock and roll fresh up.
True, right. I remember seeing her at Taranaki too. She's a big striding mare, and drawn 1, if she can get out and get to the front, I just think she'll just ping along and Lisa will kick on the turn and they won't catch her, so might be a nice way to start the day. Blue Lagoon in the 3rd race, a chance, but it just depends on how heavy that track is. Wildflower in the 5th race, I quite like, down on the weights. Blinkers go on. But, nothing else. Just in Australia, I'm quite keen on a couple there. Race 5, I Am a Star, coming back from a really good race to her own age group, 3 old fillies, 49 metres, drawn well, only paying $2.50.
Flemington race 5.
Yeah, Flemington race 5, number 2, and looks hard to beat. And in race 8, Humidor's race, I'm quite keen on Exospheric. Did his sectionals last start, and then he ran 3rd in the Caulfield Cup. And I like the way this race is going to pan out for him. I think there'll be a good pace right through this race, and I can see him getting out and Ollie getting him balanced up and powering home. $8 or $9, good each way money. Good value bet. Anything else you're keen on?
No. I don't think I'll be getting too involved tomorrow, I have to say, Neil. When there's rain on the day, the old saying, rain on the day, stay away.
Yeah. Okay, subscribers, if you've had a bad day on the punt and Mega Blast has gotten beaten, well, we can hopefully get a good multi or a couple of good bets off the Money Shots selections in the Rugby League on Saturday night and Sunday. What have you got lined up for us, Money?
Well, we like 2 teams that got beaten in round 1 to bounce back in round 2. First off, Saturday night, Canberra Raiders back at home against the current premiers, Cronulla Sharks, 9:30.
Yeah.
Just see the Raiders, they were pretty brave in defeat, losing to the Cowboys, and they're definitely a team on the rise. The Sharks, for me, look a bit rudderless without a few of their key players from last year, and I think the Raiders will get over the top pretty comfortably of the Sharks. So option 2, 661, the point start. Number 3, Canberra Raiders -5.5. $1.82 looks a pretty good bet, and you can multi that into the Sunday game where the Penrith Panthers, who we did say would be hard to beat in the comp, lost terribly in round 1, but I think they'll bounced back very quickly in round 2, taking on near neighbours, the West Tigers. And the Panthers, I think, again, they'll be really tuned up after a disappointing opening performance, and their forward pack looks way too big and strong for the Tigers. And if they can get a bit of dominance there, they've got all the backs in the world to put points on the board. So the Panthers away from home take the -1.5, which is option 2702. The point start number 4. Penrith -1.5, $1.87. They should cover that with ease. I guess it's interesting. If you remember last year's Super Rugby, the Hurricanes lost their first game by 40-odd points and ended up winning the title. So who knows? The Panthers might do the same this year.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said about their forwards. On last Sunday, the Warriors amazed me, though. They've got big forwards. You can see the difference in size in them. And I think all they have to do is just power up the middle and get it out wide as quick as they can in the 4th and 5th tackles. And how do you see them going against Melbourne tonight? Are they going to get beaten?
Well, the rain obviously could be the big leveller.
Yeah.
But if to be fair, I was reasonably impressed with Johnson's kicking game last Sunday, but
it was good.
You wouldn't get a much better kicking team than Melbourne with Cronk and Smith. So, yeah, as I said earlier, I think Melbourne will win that, unfortunately for Warriors fans. But the rain might cause a bit of it will be a leveller. So we'll see what happens. And of course, we're about to head over the hill to go and watch the Hurricanes play the Chiefs in Hamilton. It should be a good game of rugby tonight.
Gee, I'll say.
Chiefs were pretty dominant last week, beating the Blues, but the Hurricanes, they've been untested really, sort of like a racehorse that have won two maidens and rating 65s, and they're getting into the harder class now against the Chiefs. But I think they might just still have too much quality across the paddock. Anyway, probably spoken like a Hurricane supporter there, Neil, but we'll be cheering for them anyway.
That'll be a really good game. I'll watch that tonight at 7:35. That'll be good. And amongst the Auckland Trots, good fields there tonight too. A few hotties racing from the Purdon stable, but a good night's entertainment for us. Okay, back in a moment with Brick Bat and Bouquet and our multi-question for the week and our $100 bets.
Where we wrap up the show, we highlight our good bets of the weekend, we give away a $20 multi, but first of all, Neil, we'll go to Brickbat. You've got one for the last week, found something the industry can improve on?
Yeah, definitely. I was listening to the Wanganui Greyhounds on Wednesday, and the commentator said about a dog called Jamaica Mistake, and he was talking to the trainer, and he said, the trainer's given me permission to give this information out. It beat a certain dog in a trial, and which won recently or something, and it was paying $9, and was going to be a really good chance to beat the hot favourite. But nowhere is this information to be found on the websites or publicly or on YouTube. It just seems crazy to me that they have this information and everyone tries to keep it hush-hush, a bit like the jump outs, I suppose. And you can't blame them trying to get a price, but if they want to promote their sport and get punters betting on dogs, get all these trials out online and so we can punt on them. So it just seems, I know they're having problems with some clubs getting that information online and even published, which is just ridiculous to me. Anyway,
big question though is, Neil, did the dog win?
No, didn't it? It missed the jumper we got. Yeah.
Didn't have the end. I did see a qualifying trial replay on Trackside while they were previewing a dog, and they showed its qualifying trial. So I think I'm not any great aficionado when it comes to the Greyhound Code, but I think a lot of the qualifying trials are run before race day, so the cameras are probably there, so it wouldn't be hard to put those up on the website, would it? To watch those. So good point. At the end of the day, it is all about turnover and betting, and information is key. So but I think your bouquet relates to the opposite, where we did get we are getting some good information.
Yeah, true, right. At the Auckland Racing Club, they commissioned daily sectionals to do all their last 200, 400, 6 and 800 metre sectionals, etc. And it was only because we could get those sectionals from Ginger Nuts and the Avondale Guineas and compare it to the best, older sprinters on the day, that we knew we had the factual information there to say this horse could be something pretty good. Without that information, we wouldn't be so aware, but they do it for all their big meetings, so good on the Auckland Racing Club. Keep it up, punters love it, and I'm trying to do more last 200 metre sectionals too on decent surfaces, and it's just good information for punters to have a good reason to have a confident bet. So well done.
Interesting, just as a slight aside, but some of the professional rugby players, so any Super Rugby game, IGM Cup game, players carry a little thing in the back of their top of their jerseys around the top of their back with information about how many metres they've run and that sort of thing on games. Imagine if that information was available to the public, and you could see that sort of stuff from a sporting perspective.
Gee, I didn't know that. That's amazing. I'm surprising it's not made public, because if you could, you can interpret that information quite easily by scanning it and giving.
Well, the coaches love it because it shows in terms of fatigue and the like, and when to rest players, and maybe sub them slightly earlier the following week and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely it's very well regarded in the internal setup of teams, and coaches use it. But yeah, it would be interesting if that ever gets made available to the public. Yeah, you think about American sports, and there's a statistic just about for any type of scenario, and they just measure everything over there, and maybe that's the way ahead, where these sports need to take themselves to be super professional, if you like.
Too right. Information like, say, Bowden Barrett, if you could track which way he steps 99% of the time, if he steps to the left or the right, or is it 50-50, that information for punters and opposition coaches, obviously, is vital information. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep, no, just a thought while you're mentioning that. Now, shall we move on to our
multi-question?
Multi-question.
Yeah, that was good last week.
Reduced Dancer was the horse in question, with the bizarre circumstances around winning the Derby and then having to survive. Well, I don't think in theory the siren went, I remember that, but I don't think in theory there was a protest. I think the owners of Notre Dame went to walk the track to find the so-called silver object, and of course it was never found, and the horse kept the race. But as I said last week, one of the more bizarre post-race aftermaths I've ever seen on a race course.
Yeah, sure will.
We'll go to the Auckland Cup this week, shall we now? We'll pick a question around there.
Yep.
And this is the second year back, the Auckland Cup back on a weekend in March. Of course, it was moved to a Wednesday a few years back, and we want you to name the horse that won the first Auckland Cup that was run on that Wednesday change of dates a few years ago. So name the winner of the Auckland Cup on that first Wednesday and get your answers to Neil either by email or text, and you could win a $20 multi.
Yep, 027 352 6402 or formpro@formpro.co.nz, and by 10 p.m. tonight, if there's more than one, which there always are, just my wife will draw the name out of a hat, and I'll let the lucky punter know pretty well after 10 p.m. Hard luck to Richard last week. He got Tavi Dream up. Tuesday let us down, and Ginger Nuts got up for him, but hopefully this week's punter, lucky winner, can get home a good multi for us. Maybe chucking a couple of sports bets of the money shots. Here you go.
It could be one of those weekends, I guess, on that, the $100 bet. For me, Neil, I'll stick with my two league selections, both Canberra and Penrith, to cover their respective point starts. I think with the weather around, the racing could be a bit of a lottery, and I think you're staying away from New Zealand Racing too for your $100 bet.
Yeah, going to Flemington, and I like Exospheric in the Australian Cup. 50 each way for me, 850 and 260 he's currently showing. I think he'll get back and track into it, and be a great place bet at least, and he could easily win it at those sort of odds, which are quite juicy. So, you'll be heading over to Hamilton shortly, and hoping for a reasonable night, and looking forward to a top game.
Yeah, should be good. Just hopefully we're not sitting too near any of those bloody cowbells, Neil. That's my brick bat of the week.
Yeah.
Waikato supporters who think the cowbells apply to the Chiefs. It's a Mulu thing, not a Chiefs thing. Leave your cowbells at home.
Yeah. What do the Hurricanes do for anything? Got any wind socks or anything, or no?
No, they just have their chant, I think, and they have their mascot, Captain Hurricane from memory. But no, those bells can be rather annoying at times. So
they can.
There'll be Waikato supporters that are listening, or Chief supporters, leave them at home.
Yeah, too right. Oh, well, thanks everyone for joining us in the Heads Up, and thanks Money Shot for your input. Looking forward to those two sports bets. I'll have got that multi myself. I'll be staying clear of the racing, probably most races, except for Australia. So everyone, have a great weekend and make a few dollars.